What's up, guys? The boy, the life is so, aka the bodybuilder banker, and I'm here with my friend Emeka.
Hey guys, how's it going?
We put up a poll on YouTube, and the most popular answer was career progression. So, if you can kick off and kind of talk about your career and some tips for people who want to break into investment banking.
Yeah, so I think career progression is quite important. I remember when I was in Lagos doing summer internships during university, and although I was doing the most random job, I was basically just helping people print stuff or helping people get coffee, but my dad wanted me to do those jobs just so I can get into the habit of actually working. I finished those 2 or 3 internships for 2 years, and then when I go back to university, I then decided to do a placement in a bank. And at that time, I had no idea what investment banking was, even though I did a finance degree. But I had no idea what was happening in investment banking. But then I just did an internship there for a year and then talked to different people within the bank. And they told me straight up, this is where you should work, this is where you shouldn't work. If you want to do this, then work in investment banking division. If you just want a spontaneous job, do operations. So by doing that placement year, I then learned about the different divisions in the bank and then went on to my master's to get some knowledge more in banking and finance. And then after that, then knew exactly what division I wanted to work in. And now this is where the hard part actually starts. Applying for those big jobs, because we all know a lot of people apply for these jobs. I mean,
Definitely.
it's like 5,000 applications for one desk. So I end up applying to every single bank there is. I can tell you, like, I applied to every single bank. I got lucky. A bank accepted me and I started working there. And then within that bank, I then had to decide, how am I going to navigate my time here? Because the good thing about working at global banks is they're actually going to support you if you want to move to a different team, try out different divisions. So within the bank, I then had to decide, how am I going to progress? But so far, I've still stayed in the same division I started in, but I'm definitely looking to progress. And I think people within the bank are very helpful in that case.
Yeah, you said a lot of really interesting things, which I'd love to unpack. I think the first tip would be work backwards. What I mean by this is you have a huge goal, work for an investment bank or start a business. You have that goal, you imprint it, and then you think about the steps in between to get to that goal. Because sometimes when we have this huge goal, our brain wants to keep us safe. And so when it's very vast, if you don't break it up into sizable chunks, your brain keeps you safe and prevents you from actually achieving that big goal. I'll break down what I mean. So to work in a large investment bank, that's what I wanted to do. And the way I approached this is, firstly, I spoke to people. That's the quickest way. I found out the information to get to these banks. And one of the things I found was you have an increased likelihood to get into the banks if you go to a Target 6. So what did I do? I found out what a Target 6 university was. Oxford, Cambridge, Warwick, UCL, London School of Economics.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. What was next? I got to university and it was get a spring week. So then I found out what a spring week was. That was a 1-week insight into the banks in which you learn, you speak to people, and you have an opportunity to convert to a summer internship. But it's not that straightforward. You have to get a very good cover letter. You have to make sure your CV is good, because investment banks review thousands upon thousands of CVs and HR will throw it away. They don't have the time if it's not good. The point I'm trying to say is you break it up into different steps and eventually you get there. So in my case, I did an internship at probably, you'd know the bank, one of the most well-known global investment banks, and I actually failed. I didn't get the return offer. However, I use failure as feedback. What do I mean by this? I got into the investment bank. I didn't get the return offer. However, I took what could I learn to apply it to a new experience. Lo and behold, I took that to my following experience and was able to convert to a full-time offer. And that's how I landed in investment banking.
Yeah, I think what you said is quite true, because there's so many different steps you need to take into account. You need to do a good CV, a good cover letter. But the problem right now is everyone knows what you need to do. So it's almost like we've sort of made this formula and everyone now knows the formula. So now what banks really care about is how can you differentiate yourself from the whole pack? Because at the end of the day, there are thousands of students that went to LSE, Oxford, Cambridge, but what is it about you that's going to make someone working for a top investment bank employ you? So which is why during the interview process, it's very important to try and stand out.
Sure.
And it could be something as simple as talking about your hobbies, talking about something like in your spare time. Because I think a lot of students shy away from doing that, but the interview should feel more like a conversation. It shouldn't feel like a Q&A kind of vibe. It should be more like, okay, this is what I like to do apart from finance. This is also what I like to do in my free time. And I can actually tell you for a fact, when I was doing my interview for my most recent job, the hiring manager said to me, okay, you're smart, you have this master's, you've done internships here, but what is it about you? And we started talking about the gym, and lo and behold, he was actually an avid gym goer. So I told him about my PBs, and I also spoke to him in a way where he realized, okay, for this guy to consistently wake up every day at 5 a.m., go to the gym consistently, this is the kind of person that when I work with him, I can get along, number one, and also he's not going to give up ever. So obviously, within banking, there's always crisis, there's always stuff happening. Like even right now with Credit Suisse, SVB, you're going to have to work long hours. And your manager needs to know you're the kind of person that can stick it out. So I think also having those personal traits within the interview actually helps a lot as well.
Yeah. But if we extend the conversation beyond banking, just in any sort of career path, I think there's a number of things you want to focus on. First is getting in the role. Second is staying in the role and finding your right fit. And then the final thing would be extending your experience or getting promoted and doing something that you want. In terms of getting in the role, you touched on some really good things. I think one of the most undervalued things is talking about your personal story. Most people will think gym is quite a normal thing, but like you said, talking about the gym shows discipline, commitment to a diet, ability to learn about different exercises, learn about the body. When you're trying to get an investment bank, the easiest and fastest way is to speak to people who have already got into it. Even if we step out of investment banking, it might be in law, accounting, any career you want to go to, the fastest way is to get people that have already done it and implement it into your strategy. I think the saying is, don't try and reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, 100%.
And then once you do that, it's pretty much how you execute. If you're networking with the right people and you're refining your story, you use that as an opportunity to learn about their experiences, but also what things you can highlight from your experiences. One of the things that I didn't think was relevant was the fact that I was a tutor during university in order to earn extra money. This required me to learn subjects, to communicate effectively to students, and to have time management because university was the most challenging part of my academic career. Because I put in a very good story, it showed the interviewer I was capable, that if I was going to get in this job, I'm able to learn at a very fast pace. I'm able to communicate my ideas effectively, and I'll be a good candidate. Now, one thing that you touched on, which I really liked, was you did internship that wasn't your final destination.
Correct.
But you used it as a springboard. Talk more on that, because a lot of people want the golden nugget straight away, but they're not willing to go through different experiences. And I think that's a great opportunity to learn. So maybe talk more on that.
Yeah, I think for me, I always have this saying, I've always lived by it. You can learn from anyone and from any situation, regardless of what it is. So for me, although where I was working at that time wasn't where I wanted to be in the future, but at that moment, that's what I could get. And rather than saying, I'm going to work for this company because it's not what I want to do, you have to also realize at that point, you don't have as much bargaining power. So for me, it was, okay, humble yourself, learn what you can from here, ask the right questions, make those connections, actually speak to people there, because you never know. The people working at that company right now could know someone that works at a top investment bank, could actually recommend you. So it's more about also trying to broaden your network, because at the end of the day, we're all quite young, but eventually you want your network to grow, because that way, when you start working for a top bank, if you want to move, you get someone to put in a recommendation for you, because you never know who you're going to meet in the future. So rather than you end up in an internship you don't like, trying to burn a bridge, trying to say, you know what, I'm going to put in minimum effort because I don't like this role. You never know when you're going to meet those people again. And for me, it's always trying to do my best, regardless of where I find myself in the situation. So even if it's a module where, I don't think it's useful, why would you not still put in effort and get a good grade just because you don't think it's useful? Because at the end of the day, when someone looks at your track record, they say, 100% there, 100% here, but 20% there. So it means the person, you're trying to tell that person that you can get 100%, but you chose to get 20% because you actually don't know what you need or to actually do something. So you might think, I don't need the knowledge from this internship because it's not useful, but what do you really know if you're just a second university, it never works? I think having that mentality goes a long way.
Yeah, you mentioned some useful points, and I think the biggest thing I'll take from that is become a person of value. Even if the experience is not your final destination, see what can I learn from it? What can I leverage? And learn as much as possible. One of the things I wish I did earlier in my career was during the internships, try to learn as much as possible, because the more you can offer value and bring to the job, the more valuable you are perceived and the easier it is for you. And then the more time someone's going to invest in you. And to be honest, especially because we're both transitioning more to like being business owners, you realize in order to increase your earning potential, you want to earn based on your value, because even if you're getting £1 million an hour, just for the sake of an argument, you work 10 hours, your max potential is 10 million. However, if you provide value and you're able to touch a number of lives and provide something that is perceived as value towards the market, you have an uncapped potential. So I definitely say, look at the opportunities to expand your value, learn off people, and continue to be a student of the game.
Yeah, I think you touched on something in your previous point about when you started the job, how do you actually navigate moving from, obviously, when you start an investment bank, you're analyst 1, but there's analyst 1, 2, 3, associate 1, 2. So how do you actually make that move? So what are the points you can give people to let them know, okay, this is the best way to move from analyst 1 to analyst 2. What do I need to do? And what actually the bank is looking at?
Okay. I think a lot of people overcomplicate it. I'd say the first one is get the basics right. Analyst 1 is an opportunity for you to learn as much as possible, but you're perceived as a safe pair of hands. You've got through a very arduous and difficult process. Now your job is to earn the trust of your senior peers so they can give you work, allow you to, in some instances, fail, but learn from your failings so they can give you more responsibility. So when I was an analyst 1 at an investment bank, it was tough because sleep was minimal. But what I tried to do is be quite practical. Anytime I was going to submit some work, I would go for a walk, get some fresh air in, and then go back to the piece of work to check for any errors. The second thing I would do would be print my work to check if there was any typos. And then I'd always ask myself, does it make sense? So one of the things we do is financial modeling. So putting numbers on paper to determine the value of a business. For argument's sake, let's say we have an exercise and the value comes out as 100 million. I'm just throwing a number out there. You need to step out of what you're doing and say, does this make sense? Look at the comparable companies, look at the market. Does this reflect what I'm trying to do? And I think having that clarity definitely helps you going forward. I would say that networking is very good as well. Like, it's a people business and people have to like you, and you need to understand who are the key decision makers. So making sure that you're visible to the decision makers, usually the staffer, making sure you have a good relationship with them. 1, they'll give you good projects to work on, and 2, they'll put a good recommendation for you. And then the final thing is just put your best effort forward. Even if you don't get a piece of work that you enjoy, make sure you do it well, because you're going to be trusted going forward. What about yourself?
Honestly, you touched on something which I just started doing last year, which was before actually submitting a piece of work, now actually go for a walk, come back, and then print it out and actually look for errors. Because it's weird. We do a lot of work on the computers now, so it's easy to think you've read it properly, and there's no spelling mistakes, there's no typos here and there. But what I actually decided to do, because I actually learned that from my MD, because when I send him like a piece of work to look at, to review, he actually prints out everything and goes through it like line by line, which is what I decided to do, because I think although we're all, digitalized now, the best way to actually spot errors is by going through it line by line with a piece of paper. And if you know me and you've watched my previous YouTube videos, you know I like to start off my day with the most important task. I mean, if you work for an investment bank, you're always going to have important stuff to do throughout the whole day. But the night before, if you've planned out what you're going to start with, you actually want to do the stuff that's going to provide you the most visibility and provide the most value to the team earlier in the day, because you have the most energy. Because once it gets to like 3 p.m., 4 p.m., you've had 5 cups of coffee, you think you're not tired, you think you're not making mistakes, but then you read that work the next day and you're always surprised, just because you can't help by your mind being tired. It is what it is. If you've been awake since 5 a.m. and it's 4 p.m., that's a lot of hours. So I think what you've done is quite good. Actually go for a walk, get some fresh air, come back and look at the work, you realize there's so many mistakes you would have spotted. Yeah.
The final thing I'll try to say is read outside the subject. I think that's so valuable. I got asked at a talk, I was a keynote speaker, how do you become more interested in the subject matter? Well, it's by reading. I think I went and asked the student, what are you interested in? Of course, he gave me some finance answers. Then I said, outside of that, what are you interested in? He told me he was interested in the UFC. There was a particular fight. I don't know much about the UFC, but I asked him about the fight because the person who was supposed to win didn't win. And I asked him why. And the level of detail he went into demonstrated to me that he's someone who reads around the subject and is very interested in the UFC. So whatever you're doing in that field, however you're consuming information, apply it to your job. So a lot of people say, what's the best way to be on top of finance news? Like you said, we're in a digital era. People don't actually read hard copies anymore. That's fine. You've got YouTube, you've got podcasts. These are great ways for you to take in information. So I'd say whatever is working for you in parts of your life that you enjoy, apply it to other parts and build good habits that will help you keep on top of things.
Yeah, I also speak back on the career progression side. So if you want to go from like an analyst to an associate, what you need to realize is you need to make people trust you. You need to make people understand that whatever work I give you, you're going to put in your best effort, but also putting in good effort is not just enough. You also need to make sure the work is as accurate as possible, because when you're an analyst, they're going to give you work that's going to take a lot of time. You might find cumbersome, you might find boring, but they're trying to build you up to say, okay, I give America this work. I know it's going to get back to me by this specific time, and there's going to be no errors on it. And when I was interviewing, I asked the MD, what separates a good analyst from a very good analyst, like more or less. So, and he told me, a very good analyst is someone that takes time to do a piece of work. Instead of rushing to do a lot of different things, you actually spend time, make sure that work is very good, top notch, and then people can actually see that, and people know to come to you if you want something done, because at the end of the day, you're getting ranked with other analysts, and you want to be the analyst that people come to get work done. You want people in New York to know I'm the analyst to go to. You want people in the APAC region to know that as well. And once your name is out there, then you supplement that by networking. So now you know people know you're the person to go to. Now speak to those people, become more personable, learn about what they do in their free time. Do they have kids? Are they married? And then people actually start to have this kind of halo effect on you, because now they see you in a very good light and you're reinforcing that by doing good work.
Sure.